A deal is near on legislative overhaul to financial regulations in this country. For those who believe that the Constitution requires transparency and accountability, the proposal by Senator Chris Dodd, a Democrat, Senator Bob Corker, a Republican, Senator Richard Shelby, a Republican, note both political parties are in on this. This proposal is a constitutionally offensive monstrosity. The proposal reposes authority to micromanage all financial institutions in the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is a private bank that answers only to those whom it enriches. It enriches its owners by lending out funny money and receiving back hard money. It lends money to the federal government and to foreign governments, and it has never been audited. The job of the CIA is to steal and keep secrets, but we know far more about the CIA than we do about the Fed. Do we really want such a gaggle of private bankers with subpoena power to invade the private business judgment of all banks in the United States? Whatever happened to the free in free enterprise? Let's ask Eric Bolling, co-host of Fox Business Network's Happy Hour and my good friend at the Fox News Channel. Eric, welcome to Freedom Watch.
Well, thanks for having me,
All right.
Judge.
Am I getting carried away, or should we be worried about the Fed?
Listen, you know, the Fed's mandate has been always to provide maximum employment and price stability, whether it's inflationary or deflationary. Whether you believe in that or not, some would say, okay, that's enough.
Right.
Now they're expanding this authority. Now they're saying which institutions are too big to fail. Maybe we should help them out. Maybe we should break them up. The reach of the Fed is ballooning, and now they're asking for yet even more.
I have constitutional problems. I have moral problems. I have economics 101 problems with the whole concept of any entity in the government regulating banks by looking at compensation, by looking at investments, by looking at reserves, by looking at contracts that they enter into and property they own. Let's just put aside those reservations that I have. But the concept of having it done by the Federal Reserve, by what is effectively an entity owned by private bankers, but acting with authority from the Congress, that under the Constitution, only the Congress can operate, acting in secrecy, never been audited. We don't know what they do with the money that they print. How dangerous is that?
And look at it this way, Judge. How about the institutions that may be banks but something else? The one that comes to mind, General Electric. You know, they're one of the biggest banks in the world, General Electric Credit Corp. They also happen to be an amusement park operator, and owns NBC, industrial company. At what point does the Fed want to have a say in every industry, not just the banking industry?
Well, we know what governmental power is like. St. Augustine called it libido dominandi, the lust to dominate. You give this kind of power to somebody in the government, especially an entity that is not transparent and not accountable. This isn't a committee of Congress. This isn't even a member of the president's cabinet. This is that amorphous secret thing that most of the country didn't even know about till Ron Paul started saying we better look at these people and audit them and audit them. Don't you think they're going to want to look at what what GE does as well?
Sure, I'm sure they will. But the question is, and then what's next? Are other institutions too big to fail? There are some that would say some of the airline industries, companies may be too big to fail, because what would happen, God forbid, if this one went down, will we still have transportation? Or a media company, is Fox News too big to fail? Will they have a say in how we would run Fox News?
Will the government begin deciding or defining that any entity that holds money for somebody else, or lends money to somebody else, or advances credit to somebody else is really a bank, even if it's Fox News or News Corp or General Electric, and therefore can be regulated by this super secret bank that controls the strings on all the banks?
That's the risk. Here's the thing, Judge. They're looking for more control. They want to get involved. They say, well, we came too close to financial crisis. They're going to take credit for bailing out. You know, the market looked like the world was going to end about a year and a half ago. It didn't end after all, so they're going to take credit. And they're saying now, let's never let that happen again. The problem is, think about what just came down recently. We just found out that we're going to get $25 billion back from AIG, $35 billion sale, $25 billion is going to come back. Did you hear where it's going to go? Does anyone know where it's going to go?
Where's it going to go?
We don't know where it's going to go. They're not required to pay back the entity that they borrowed it from. They said, take your time. We'll figure it out later. Here's the problem with the Fed and frankly, the Treasury and everything going on in Washington. They were quick to loan the money out. They were quick to give it out in the form of bailouts, but they never said what you need to do with it.
We are chatting with Eric Bolling, one of the hosts of Happy Hour on the Fox Business Network. Here's one of my problems with the Fed. When AIG got its money from the Fed, did the Fed bring a wheelbarrow of cash to AIG? No, they used an intermediary bank, in this case, Chase. Did they bring a wheelbarrow of cash to Chase? No. Did they send a check to Chase? No. They just took Chase's ledger sheet at the Fed and added 3 or 6 or 9 zeros to it, and Chase wrote a check on that and gave it to AIG. Where did that money come from?
That's the printing press. That's exactly what that is, Judge. You create additional funds. The problem is, now the AIG or Citigroup or Goldman Sachs or whoever took the bailout money wants to give it back. The money's coming back, and it's becoming a slush fund. It's becoming the Treasury. It's going into, hey, Barney Frank wants to use $25 billion of it for small business loans or home loans or mortgage mitigation, and that's what they're all using it for.
And as you know, because you and I talk about the Constitution all the time on Happy Hour, this is my objection to it, because the Constitution says only the Congress can decide how this money is being spent. But here, some of it's going to the Treasury and some of it's going to the Fed, and they're taking the position they can spend it however they want. But think of what's going back to the Fed. What went out is funny money, printed money, created out of thin air. What comes back is real dollars. So the Fed never parted with anything. It didn't send that wheelbarrow of cash to Chase Manhattan Bank. But when AIG pays it back, it's with a real check with real money that really goes back to the Fed. That's how they make their money.
We've said that from day one when they created TARP and when they created all these PPIP. What they're doing is they're making government bigger, only because when the money comes back in, we knew it wasn't going to be retiring debt.
Right.
We knew it was going to go into some slush fund and it was going to be repurposed into jobs bills and the XYZ bill. That means they created money, and that means they made government bigger. Had they just said, look, when that money comes back in, we're going to retire that goodbye, put it aside. It was a loan. It would come back in the same form it went out. This is a different form. You're 100% right.
Why do you think both parties go for this? Why does it only seem to be the Ron Pauls and the free market defenders that are so offended by the Fed? I mean, this deal cooked up by Chris Dodd has the support of Republicans on the committee as well.
Well, why wouldn't they, Joe? It's government getting bigger. They are government. It's like a CEO wanting the pie to get bigger, even if it means his competitor is making the pie bigger. Bing has a lot of hits. That's okay if Google gets bigger, as long as Bing gets bigger as the pie gets bigger. So it's the same thing. They're all guilty. Anyone who says, let's use that money for something else, whether it's jobs bill, unemployment, benefits, whatever you want to use it for, is just making government bigger.
Doesn't matter who's in the government. Both parties, whoever's running it, Ron Pauls and his folks are the exception. They all want the government to get bigger.
I can't unequivocally say everyone on both sides wants government bigger,
but the ones that way.
But the ones that sign on to these bills that repurpose money that should be coming back and retiring debt, they certainly are in favor of bigger government and printing money.
Only live, nationally broadcast show from a bar, Happy Hour, and I love to share your time with
Judge, we love having you.
Thanks.
It's always a pleasure being on one of your shows.
Thank you, Eric Bolling, and thanks for joining us on Freedom Watch. Pleasure.